So somebody over there in Japan must have heard me talking about how last week's episode was a bit underwhelming with the screenplay and structure of the story, because this is how you end a goddamn episode, my dudes. This is how you cliffhang an episode and leave your audience wanting to know what happens next. Hello everybody, I am Phenom Sage, and welcome back to another Made in Abyss Season 2, The Golden City of the Scorching Sun episode review. Today we will be talking about Episode 9, The Return. And what a return indeed, a return to the standard of excellence that I have come to expect from this second season. And this may very well be one of the best episodes so far, because finally, after an entire series of waiting, an entire series of not really doing much of anything, finally, Faputa is able to play an active role in the story and in the series, and immediately, as soon as she is able to do something, she gives one of the coolest, most badass speeches I've heard in recent memory, and goes in for the kill, my dude. And this is kind of where I want to start this discussion, because a big part of Season 2 lately, and even just Made in Abyss as a whole, has been about analyzing and discussing the moral ambiguity and righteousness of certain characters in the story, and if what they're doing is actually justified or not. And I think one of the best things this episode does is it really makes you feel that uncertainty about what Faputa is doing, about the entire situation as a whole. Should we destroy this village? Should Faputa kill the Hollow Villagers? Is Wazukian really that bad of a guy? I don't know, man. I really don't know how to answer a lot of these questions. I mean, obviously, this village is the product of something extremely horrific and terrible, and you completely understand Faputa's motivation in doing what she's doing. But at the same time, I don't think any of these villagers are to blame for what happened. All they did was seek shelter in a place where they could, and in a way, they gave their lives to Irumyuui already. The only person you can really say deserves to have some kind of act of judgment exercised upon them is Wazukian, the guy who is responsible for all of this happening. So at the end of the day, I do think the village needs to be destroyed. I think that is the right decision in this scenario. I think it's a really nice reintegration of the same themes that were explored in the Midi situation back in Season 1 as well. This whole idea of Reg needing to mature and grow up to the point where he's able to make these really hard and painful decisions, all of that stuff is excellent. I think that's how you end this arc. But all of that being said, I obviously don't want a lot of these dudes to die. I don't think a lot of them deserve to die. And as we'll talk about in a second, I think a lot of them still have a purpose that they can fulfill that doesn't involve staying inside of this cursed village. Speaking of Wazukian though, I really want to talk about this guy. Every single episode lately, this guy really seems to be the one that I want to talk about the most. And in this episode, we learn that this assumption that I have been going under this whole time about his character is actually not true. It's just completely false. Wazukian's wish, his goal with all of this, was not to create this village. His goal was never to create this community where everyone had a place to belong, and that alone already raises a lot of interesting discussion and perspective on who he is as a character. Again, it really brings into question if he's a villain or not, especially now if you realize his goal was never to actually create this space for everyone to live and survive in. Wazukian's goal, apparently, is still to leave this village and make his way down to the Golden City that he has sought after this entire time. And it does make me wonder then why he would be kind of antagonistic this episode if what he wants and what Faputa wants and what Reg is trying to do all align with the same goal, destroying this village and destroying that barrier that prevents them all from leaving. You could make a very sound argument that what he was doing was pushing Reg into a situation where he needed to destroy the barrier, but honestly it seemed like something Reg was going to do anyways. He has to fulfill that promise after all, so I'm not sure if that was even necessary. Again though, it's just a really interesting position to put Wazukian in, considering we've been operating under this false assumption of him for a very long time. And what I love most about this part of the episode is that it was Rico who psychoanalyzed him to the point of being able to recognize his true goal. And I can't tell you enough how much I loved this episode just for reincorporating and discussing a lot of the things that I have brought up in these reviews. And that's just a testament to a good story, when things that you can pick up on and analyze end up being a lot more important and pronounced the further you get into the story. A few weeks ago, I talked about Rico's morality as a character and how in the Bondrewd arc, Bondrewd himself mentions how similar he and Rico are in terms of their personality and drive. They're both characters who are practically willing to do anything, sacrifice anything that they need to in order to achieve their ambitions. And the past few weeks, I've seen a lot of Bondrewd comparisons when talking about Wazukian's character as well, and I completely agree that they share a lot of those similar traits in their personalities and goals, which is why in this episode, in this week's story, the moment when Wazukian is surprised at the fact that Rico understood him that perfectly on a psychological level where she was able to guess his true intentions and goals, that's when everything clicked for me, man. It feels so nice seeing a character so consistently written where these kinds of moments have such great payoffs in the story. And all of that ties into another thing that I discussed last week that is sure to become a driving factor in these last few episodes, and that is this idea of desire and longing that everyone who goes into the abyss ends up feeling. Whether you come down here for treasure or research or a home, that entrancement of the abyss ends up captivating everyone to the point where they find something else that is pushing them forward and pushing them deeper and deeper into the abyss. And as we see this episode, these villagers aren't just content sitting around in this village either. They want to continue diving. They want to find this city and reach its bottom. And Faputa herself wants to go down with Reg further into the abyss. And all of this just makes me wonder, by the end of this arc, once this whole storyline is said and done, who will still be alive and who will end up joining our group and continuing our way to the bottom? Last week I said how I really would like to see Vueko join our group and continue the journey down below, and I still think that. I still think that that would be a wonderful decision. She's a great character and somebody that I think would have a great dynamic with the rest of the group, but this episode raises a different possibility. The possibility of Faputa joining and continuing with us into the abyss, which I also think would be a really cool and awesome decision and add to the dynamics of the party. You know, assuming we're cool letting the murderer of every single hollow here casually travel with us. I just wonder if that closes off the possibility of Vueko joining as well, and I'm starting to wonder, unfortunately I'm starting to wonder, if Vueko will end up being a casualty by the end of this arc, because I think it really could be a great and satisfying conclusion to her character arc if she ends up sacrificing herself or if she just ends up destroyed alongside Irumyuui. Just because they have that bond, they have that connection that they share, and I think that could end up being a good conclusion to her character. At the same time though, I obviously do not want Vueko to die. I really like her character, I really want her to join the group, and I hope that ends up happening because another great conclusion to Vueko's arc would be her surviving, her taking care of and living alongside the only daughter that Irumyuui could end up giving birth to. I think that would be a wonderful continuation of her character and give her a purpose for coming along with us beyond just, oh, you're cute, come join the group. So I could see it going either way. I'm equally convinced of both of these things happening, and that's why I'm really interested in seeing how all of this ends up. If I had any kind of complaint about this episode, then it really would come down to Nanachi, and more specifically, just this entire Nanachi hostage plotline that's going on. To be fair, I was really into it in the beginning, just because it felt like there were some added stakes. It gave everybody in the party an interesting angle in this arc to explore. But we're nearing the end of the season now, and it's basically been entirely pointless to the overall story of this arc. I mean, by the end of this episode, Belaf just wakes her up anyways, and while I was watching that, it made me think, what was even the point of everything we were doing if you were just going to wake her up when everything starts going wrong? I don't know, man. I talked to a few people about this, and it really does feel like Akihito had the idea for this arc. He had the idea for this arc centering around Reg and Riko in mind, and he didn't know what to do with Nanachi, and he had to figure out this completely random circumstance to get her out of the arc and center it on Reg and Riko. And ironically, I swear I didn't want to bring this up again, but ironically, it kind of makes more sense why that entire discussion we had about whether Bondrewd could feasibly make it to the village. It makes sense now why that had some holes and weird inconsistencies to it that led me to confusion. I don't know, man. It's not a huge deal, obviously. It's not detracting from this arc in a huge way. This arc has been great even without Nanachi, but I really wish there was a more interesting and involved role that she could have had in this storyline. Overall, though, a return to form, another great episode of Made in Abyss Season 2. Lots of little details in this episode that I loved. That identical shot of Reg firing the incinerator, Wazukian calling Reg and Riko the challengers, the music at the end of the episode. Do I even need to say anything? You know it was fantastic. I know it was fantastic. One of the best tracks in the series, perhaps. Penkin, I love you. The voice acting this episode was also tremendous, especially from Bueko, and especially from Faputa in that final scene, in that final speech that she gave to all of the villagers. That shit gave me chills, man. We are finally reaching the climax of this entire arc. It's all going to go down next episode, and I cannot wait. Join the Discord server in the description if you want to hang out and chat about Made in Abyss or whatever else. Subscribe, like the video, all of that stuff. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next video.